You're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey and I'm joined by Paul.
Good evening, mate.
And Neil.
Hello.
2 games, 2 wins, 3 goals scored, none conceded. The question on everyone's lips is, Paul, how will you use moment of the week to bring in a negative from the situation?
I've been struggling with this all day. There are so many positives over the last, 4 or 5 days. As people who follow us on Twitter will know, that the 3 of us, for the first time ever, spent 90 minutes watching a game of football together. That was very pleasurable.
What a lovely day.
So go on.
What a lovely day.
Yeah, it was
really
a brilliant
was,
day.
wasn't it? Yeah.
And it was, yeah, I mean, it was my birthday as well, so that was always nice to see us win on my birthday. So that was added to it. But my moment of the week, I think there's one player who has been instrumental in 2 victories and probably is at the bottom of most people's lists, and that's Lee Burge, who I thought was outstanding in the dying minutes against Carlisle. And if you haven't checked it out yet, read CCFC's post-match blog, where he goes through the game and gives quite a lot of data. And he pointed out, and we spotted at the time, where everything that went into the box, Burge just caught and killed momentum. He didn't flap, he didn't punch, he caught it. And that save he made right at the very end, when we were down to 10 men, was just outstanding, and just a very, very high-level save. And again, yesterday in the first half, when we were pretty ropey against Carlisle, he made a brilliant save in the first half, and his save in the second half to tip the ball onto the bar was outstanding. And he's just a guy who is lucky to be back in the team in a way, because Liam O'Brien was obviously started first choice. He's got his chance again, and he's been pretty immaculate since he's got back into the side. I know his kicking still isn't 100% perfect, but all you want from him at times is him to stop shots, and he's just added an air of assurance to the back four, and I think he deserves a lot more praise than he's been getting from most places I've seen. Who haven't been slagging him off. He's just gone completely under the radar. I think he deserves a bit more credit than that.
I'm pretty sure that Neil is going to be with me on this one. Can we stop talking about his kicking?
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's actually a thing.
No. He kicks the ball out of play sometimes, like every single goalkeeper. I think he maybe had a couple of games last year where it was more than you would expect, but broadly speaking, I think his kick is absolutely fine.
I think his kicking could be better, but yeah, I think it's just the fact that it always seems to get mentioned, and I think people couldn't. Every so often, yeah, he kicks it out of play, and it is a bit frustrating. It's not as accurate as it could be, but as I said, it's just a minor point.
I think he's on hiding to nothing, though, given that most of his kicks are aimed towards Vincenti, who's usually stood on the byline. I think sometimes they're going to go out of play. If you hang around with criminals, you're going to get lied to quote Alan Partridge. Neil, your moment of the week.
Oh, it's hard to look beyond Lampteython 2017. That was a great meeting of minds at the weekend, long overdue. But I think I'm going to go with the enforced photo I had taken with Corey Adai. Thank you to Paul. I don't know if you saw this, Joey, but at half-time, Corey Adai was sat fairly close to us, and we'd all sort of clocked him. Bear in mind, he's an under sort of 23 keeper. He's not really a big deal in many sense, but we know him because we're big fans.
Of course.
And he was just walking past, and then I didn't even notice him. And the next thing I heard was Paul saying, Corey, he really wants a photo with you. And I had to, feign enthusiasm for this photo with someone who's about 2 foot taller than me. So, and you can tell just how tall he is because I'm stood on the step above him, and he still towers above me. So yeah, that was my moment of the week. Basically, meeting Corey Adai. It was great, and it was fantastic, but it wasn't planned.
No, and you asked if I saw it. I saw the photo that came out afterwards, which, if you've not seen already, you're stood on the how do you call it? Like the row behind.
Yeah,
and are still only as tall, which is delightful. He is. He's a very long man, isn't he? I know we've talked about this an awful lot this season for a player that hasn't actually featured yet, but remarkably long.
Given what I said about him as well, I think that photo is probably just That was the perfect photo. Yeah.
Is it possible that he's grown that tall out of spite because of what you said?
There's a rumour that is what's happened. He heard the pod and he thought, well, I'm going to show him.
I'll show him,
and that's it, yeah.
I think, just to be totally clear on the nature of Lampteython 2017, the club, some of you will be aware, that sent emails out to people offering a birthday gift of a free hospitality experience. Is that what you call it? That's a remarkably modern parlance thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, we experienced it, though.
Well, we did, yeah. And it was Paul's birthday on Saturday, as he said, and my birthday was a little while ago. And then we were in the hospitality, so we got to meet up. We watched the Man City game together, sort of, but kind of just chatted through it and watched a man get kicked in the face. And then we're able to take in the padded seat and Maxime Biamou's lovely grey jacket, very natty.
Yeah.
A lot of Mark Robbins leaning over, sort of bending over while he sort of castigated the players. We saw Michael Brown shout relentless swear words and admonishments to his team. That was really something. That might be my sort of second moment of the week. We're seeing in full action Michael Brown, Chris Morgan, and whoever the other guy was.
David Kelly.
My word. What that...
That's not management, is it?
That was
all
not
I can
management.
say is, as they lost again yesterday and didn't score, making it, I think, 6 games or 5 league games on the bounce they haven't scored, all I'm going to say is to Port Vale's chairman, who I'm pretty sure is listening to this, his motivational methods aren't working.
Yeah.
Clearly not working. Because the guy comes across as a complete dick.
Yeah. I don't care how well his tracksuit fits him. You can't treat people the way he does. It was wrong.
He was in Smashing Nick, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was
compared to Robbins.
Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier, funnily enough. It's odd looking at Robbins and thinking, wow, you used to be a professional athlete.
Yeah, he's done his time, hasn't he? No, that's it. Game over for him.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've sort of moved on slightly to the Port Vale game. We were all there, as we've said. Neil, you're going to cover this one for us. A low-quality game, fair to say?
Yeah, it's amazing how sort of different, where you sit different places, it kind of changes your perspective of things. So we were sat fairly close to the pitch. And I don't know about you two, but that certainly did alter sort of my experience of that match. And I don't feel like I was able to properly absorb the match itself because I was so sort of preoccupied with everything else that was going on. So 3-4 days later, a lot of it has gone from my mind. But the overriding thought is, yes, that wasn't a very good game of football. And yet there are moments which made for a decent highlights package again. And you sort of work through it. And you've got Jones's goal, which was really a great goal, but it was given to him from some absolutely atrocious defending. I mean, I can't remember last time I've seen defenders back off a player that much. They just this is one guy in our team you think, he's got a good left foot. He's always going to try on his left foot. And the way they just allowed him to basically stop, look, twist, and have a shot on his left foot was just, it was appalling by them. And you can tell why their fans were cross. But don't take anything away from the finish. It was a very, very good shot.
To be fair to Michael Brown, that was probably the only time where he's ranting and raving. You were stood there going, think, lads, he's got a point there, hasn't he?
Yeah. We'll let him have that one.
Yeah, because you had to go on and going, you backed off. You know when you're like, because I wasn't really paying much attention to the defender, and I was like, did he really back off that much? And you watch it on the highlights, you're like, that man basically just turned around and went, ooh, I'm a bit close to you. I'm going to get a bit further. Oh, you can do that, can you?
He got the push
backing off, and then there's just that, which was there wasn't even any attempt to even move towards him. If anything, it was just like an postal invitation. Just go on, have a go, and it was just. I would be absolutely livid if that was our defenders. And what, they bottom now?
I said I think they won their first game. They've now lost 6 on the bounce and haven't scored in 5.
And amazingly, if they'd won against us, they would have been a point behind us. So
funny old game.
4 days later, it all looks very different, and it just goes to show what a couple of goals can do for everything. Frank de Boer, if you're listening, I feel for you. Anyway,
just saying, Frank de Boer's not in a job, and Michael Brown is.
Port Vale chairman, if you're listening.
Oh, he's a COF fan, isn't he?
That chairman, I think, has virtually stepped down.
Oh, has he? Smurthwaite?
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that he's no longer... I think he might still be the chairman, but he's not
the owner
doing anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, this isn't a Port Vale podcast, so no one gives a fuck, really, let's be honest.
Except Matty Roper. Hi, Matty.
Yeah, hi Ropes.
Matt, you might actually, if you stay at Port Vale long enough, you might be manager by the time we play you at Vale Park.
Anyway, yeah, Neil. The football match.
Football match, yes. So we started with a lineup which I think when you look at it, Tony came in and it was better. I think we all were calling for that, but it still didn't quite sort of sit well with me when you still got the surrounding Vincenti, McNulty kind of dynamic, and it felt a little bit sort of stale. But I mean, McNulty didn't actually last long on the pitch, did he? He got injured. Was that hamstring? I can't quite remember. I think that was a hamstring.
Yeah, he walked up going, "Army."
Yeah. Well, we get this insight, don't we? He said hamstring, so he was off, and Bevan came on. And what I want to say about Bevan is he's still not very good at the moment, but he did have probably his greatest shot for us on his left foot. It was straight at the keeper, but he doesn't have many shots at all for a striker, and he did come close to scoring. And then obviously he had the chance where he was through on goal, second half. He pretty much should just put that one away, but it was quite a tentative sort of lob over the keeper in the end. So he'll be a little bit annoyed, I think, they didn't grab a goal. What else happened in that match? Vincenti on the right side, I mentioned him. He's such an enigma. He's sort of got these moments of really poor quality about him, but then every now and again you get this sort of these telescopic legs, and he makes these great tackles, and you just sort of think, oh, I quite like you again now. And I don't know why I'm liking him a bit more now, but it's just he's got those Connor Thomas tackles about him which are quite handy. Actually, just to jump ahead, last night I thought he was on the verge of getting sent off. He'd already been booked, and he was still flying in with these crazy tackles. So he was very lucky at one point, wasn't he? Yeah, that was it.
We turned to each other and sort of, pretty sure I just went, I think the referee's just had second yellow card blindness, where he thought if I pull that up as a foul, it's got to be a second yellow, and he sort of let it go, and we were like, oh, okay.
It was just after his goal as well, wasn't it? So he's all hyped up, and to get sent off, that would have been...
just after or just before? I'm
pretty sure it was after his goal, because I just remember thinking, right. Yeah, it was just he got booked for. I mean, actually, he made a tackle in the Port Vale game, which is a fantastic tackle, and that shit referee booked him for that as well, I think. So it was just, yeah, I do like his tackling. So that's one mark for Vincenti. This is a dreadful sort of review of the match because I wasn't in my standard place. I didn't quite get the view that I wanted of the game. All I know is that I felt like Port Vale were a really, really poor team, and we were a competent, controlling team until the sending off, and that was probably the bit that everybody spoke about. I mean, I've watched it a million times, like everybody, and now I look at it, it's not the sending off that annoys me as much as sort of the fact that the law allows for that interpretation. Because the interpretation, and you can kind of twist it this way, is that he's the last man, he's made a foul, and whether he meant it or not, he should go. And I know things have changed slightly, and people are saying if it's not intentional, the rules say that you can't get sent off now. But I think my biggest issue is that moment, suddenly the rules say that now he has to be banished from the pitch for that moment, and also he has to be banned for a further game because he's been sent off for that moment. If you can tell me that fouling someone who's run into your back means that you have to miss 1.5 games of football, it's just things like this don't make any sense to me. I'm all for, like, you know, bookings, and I think a lot of us sort of like the idea of a sin bin as a sort of a punishment, but it's not like a terminal punishment over the course of 3 or 4 games or whatever it is when you get a full-on red card. But that's what annoyed me more than most. It's such an innocuous bit, and he now has to miss a match because of it. Some people say it wasn't a foul, all that sort of stuff, but nobody knows what's going through his mind. For you know, he might have been trying to block him off. But yeah, that's my view on that sending off. What do you guys think?
Paul, I'll throw it over to you.
as I said at the time, if he was the last man and the referee deems it as a free kick, he goes. Whether or not I've watched it back once and I looked at it and just thought, from this angle at this distance, I have no idea if he fouled him or not. I couldn't tell you if he meant to foul him, or if he did foul him, or if the player ran into him. I talked to a friend of the show, which is really ironic, he's not listening and doesn't care, Jimbo, and I said, "What did you think?" And he went, "As soon as I saw it, I said red." And all I can go off is like, Jimbo's the sort of person who has argued with me many times over like black being white on these decisions when they're going into Carve. And if Jimbo says, as soon as he saw it, I thought it was a red, it didn't surprise me when he got sent off. I sort of, to some extent, moved on from it because it's one of those ones where it's so difficult to tell. He was the last man, the guy. You watch where the ball goes, it sort of goes towards goal.
Probably that's not the point anymore, is it? Being the last man, haven't the rules changed?
It's a goal scoring opportunity, and basically, it's like, so basically, if he was the last man, but the sort of the ball and the player were going towards the touchline, then yeah, he doesn't have to be sent off. In this one, the ball, his next touch, if he'd have stayed on his feet, was a shot on target. Was a shot. That's basically, from what I could see, that was what his next intention was. The next thing that was going to happen if he had stayed on his feet was it was going to be a shot. So you could say he basically stopped a goal-scoring opportunity. I mean, as we discussed at the time, for me, in the second half, when Bevan got the ball, I think we defended a corner and we broke, and it was Bevan and the Duck. And there was one player just behind Bevan and one player with the Duck. So basically, if Bevan got away from his man, it was 2-on-1. And the man basically just professionally fouled him, rugby tackled him to the floor. For me, that's stopping a clear-cut goal-scoring opportunity as well. And I would have probably that would have been a red or a sin bin offence for me, because that was just cynical. He wasn't trying to win the ball. He was just stopping a goal-scoring opportunity or the potential of one. But these things are the way they work.
Can we talk about McDonald's performance before being sent off? Because I thought he did rather well.
Yes.
And I think he's looked very good. What I was fascinated to read in the CCFC blog that you talked about earlier, Paul, which is the stats blog that's come out recently, that's really good, would really recommend it, is when you look at his statistics, it doesn't reflect a particularly strong performance necessarily. It showed that he lost more of his aerial duels with their striker than Willis did, and lost more than he won. And it didn't particularly present a glowing thing for him. But to my untrained eye, I thought he'd had a pretty commanding game. Where does the disconnect from that happen?
It's strange, isn't it? Because I guess it all comes down to the things you're looking for. So that one stat is focusing on those aerial duels, but there's so much more going on in his performance, and there's a lot more sort of shepherding people out, just controlling the match a little bit more. I mean, I think what struck me more than anything is just how I see him and Willis together now, and how he is the commanding defender. He is the better defender. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of Willis, but coming into this season, I felt like he was going to be our biggest, our mainstay defender. He was the one who was supposed to be leading the line. But then you've got Rod McDonald who's come in, who's actually, I would say, head and shoulders in every sense of the word above Willis as a defender. I thought it was a great performance, really. Without watching it back and kind of eyeing up all these missed headers and things, it's hard for me to judge on that. But I think gut feel, and we were speaking about it at the time, Joey, gut feel was until he got sent off, it was a very strong performance from him.
It'll be interesting to see as we move on to the Carlisle game, to see how much we missed him and how well Tom Davis came in and did. We've gone this far without talking about Jody Jones, his sort of overall performance. The thing that was notable, I felt, from the vantage point that we took on Saturday was, one, I'd never quite noticed the full extent to which him and Robbins conversed during the game. I didn't know whether that was just in that particular game or whether that was generally and I just missed it. But they seemed to be in very constant communication, and I could not work out exactly what it was because it tended to be quite brief. What was also incredibly apparent, I felt, was his work rate and his defensive positioning was really phenomenal for a player that I don't credit with, and I don't mean this nastily, but I don't credit him with having an enormous amount of football intelligence, but actually his positional play and his work rate was really, really outstanding, wasn't it?
I think he's playing a different game to everybody else at the moment, really. I mean, he's obviously got that attacking side of his game where right now he believes he's better than probably anybody else on the pitch, and he's got that freedom to do it. But like you say, it seems like he's kind of taken on this role of I'm the main man, and he's taken that into his defensive duties as well, and he's working far harder than we saw before, especially last season when there were elements of his game which you kind of saw him hiding and not really trying his best to get into the match. Maybe he was shying away from it because he was losing the ball a little bit more than we expected. But this season, it's a different player altogether. I mean, every game I've seen him, while there have been games where he's obviously scored the hat-trick and he's been at sort of peak Jody Jones level, even the games where people have said, he hasn't played well, when you look at them, just Jody Jones' performance, and you look at the amount of times he dribbles with the ball, the amount of times he draws players away, he's such a huge threat for us, and his performances this season, pretty much in every game, have been far better than what he gave us last year. So, the problem we've got now, and I hate to mention it, but we've got a lot of injuries, and he is that one player now that if we lose, we're in a big bit of bother. But let's pretend that's never going to happen because we can't really afford to tempt fate on that one.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate set of injuries. Paul, I think you wanted to particularly highlight one other player from the game that you felt had the strongest performance.
Did I?
Yeah, you spent most of Saturday talking about how you felt that Liam Kelly was the best player on the pitch.
Yeah, sorry. I was just thinking about Jody Jones, which I do a lot at the moment.
Just daydreaming, love hearts in your eyes. Me and pretty sure I discussed this after the game yesterday. And also, for me, Jody Jones is standout. And I know last week when I mentioned it, you shot me down. I'm going to mention it again this week. After his performance on Saturday, he was in one of the newspapers' Team of the Week. And the thing I find about Jody Jones, which I've been to 4 games now, I find remarkable is in League One, most teams have a Jody Jones. In League 2, from what I've seen so far, there's literally Jody Jones.
Yeah.
Except Port Vale, who had his exact doppelganger playing for them. But it was nowhere near the quality. I'm being facetious, obviously. It was nowhere near the quality.
But I've seen very few players. One thing we noticed, we got onto the Carlisle game, it was also evident in the Port Vale game, is just how one-paced most teams are. How just plodding most players are. And it's Jody Jones. I think if we go back to the Rumbelows Cup, Rumbelows Sprint Challenge thing, Jody Jones must be one of the quickest players in the division. Because I've seen no one anywhere near having his ability to just run with the ball at pace. And it's quite odd seeing him, not in a negative way, just so odd to see him stand out in every game as being the one player on the pitch who has the ability to drift past players and do it at quite a high pace. So yeah, Jody Jones for me is very special for us at the moment, and I'm just hope that he's not only stays fit, but he's still here at the end of the season, because I still think that he's going to be the difference. Liam Kelly, who I wasn't not negative about or positive about after the first couple of times I saw him. I was just a bit indifferent about. I didn't really see much to his game other than just being stood very deep. And again, against Carlisle, which we'll go on to, in the first half, again, I found him very deep. But in the second half of both games, he's taken he's playing his game 10 yards further forward. And on Saturday, he had the shot from when Burge did a long ball out, which Bevan headed back, that he put just wide. Again, yesterday, first half, so he didn't have a great first half. In the first half, he got on the edge of the area from a duck pullback, which he put over the bar. So he's beginning to get further forward, and obviously he played the pass for the Ducks' goal, and he also played decent ball through on Saturday, which put someone away. So he's definitely getting more adventurous with his passing. He's looking more forward, and he is finding his passing range a lot more. So yeah, he is someone who I think he's beginning. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think whether or not it's just him and he's not used to playing alongside of Doyle, that now he's sort of getting more used to playing along Doyle, and he knows that Doyle's not going to go forward. Maybe it's giving him a bit more confidence to take that step forward, knowing that he's not leaving the midfield completely sort of open. He's leaving Doyle behind him, so he's got that bit more license. But he's definitely a player as the season's progressing who's impressing me more and more.
Can I just quickly take you back to a point that you made before, and then we'll move on to the Carlisle game. You were talking about the quality in League 2. I remember when we went down to League 1, I remember saying to you, Paul, at the time, that I thought the gulf in class between the Championship and League 1 probably wouldn't be all that chasmous, that it would be reasonably close. And then when we got into League 1, I was like, no, it is quite a bit worse. But it's not stunning, the drop-off in quality. The drop-off in quality between League 1 and League 2 is stunning. I cannot believe how poor the games have been generally so far. And the absolute lack of quality. And like you say, the lack of pace is so astounding. You would have thought that especially if you were a lower end team, that you would go out and just get a 100-metre sprinter because you think even if they could barely finish, the extra dimension that it would add and the way that you would stretch the pitch against defenders and teams that just can't run at any sort of speed whatsoever, you'd think that alone would be worthwhile. Every team just seems to be a really lumpen, like immobile mass of kind of not really defending or attacking. Hopefully, I mean, I think we've been quite fortunate with the fixtures that we've had at the start of the season. Maybe it will pick up as we face some of the better teams as we go through. But it's been pretty dull so far. Neil, am I being unfair?
Didn't we? Speed-wise, he's another one who shows.
Yeah.
He actually had that run, didn't he? Which, I mean, him and Jones kind of stand out when it comes to pace. I think it's remiss of us not to mention Nazon, actually, for a couple of reasons. So, what I found quite funny was the fact that he didn't warm up at all at half-time in that game. He spent the entire 15 minutes chatting to Biamu in his natty jacket. But the best part of it was maybe 30 seconds before everybody else started running out. He made this really sort of token gesture, sort of move onto the pitch to make it look like I've just done 15 minutes of warm-up. So when Robin saw him, it gave the illusion that, he just finished his warm-up, so he's ready to go. And I was like, you liar. You've just stood there talking to... And this is one of the things which I think Robbins has kind of alluded to in terms of his sort of intensity in training, maybe his effort in training. So we've all been calling for him. From what we've seen, get this guy on the pitch, we need to play him. I guess what Robbins sees is maybe a little bit more of that side of his game. And I don't want to have a go at him because I do sort of love him in many respects. But I thought that was particularly funny. The other thing that sort of conversely then was I had a few messages on Twitter after I'd sort of said something about Nazon, just basically giving him absolute hell's abuse for how lazy he was in that second half. I have to admit, I didn't see it.
I didn't see that.
I didn't see him lazy. No. I thought, there were some moments where he struggled to understand the sort of where he needed to be positionally, but as far as running and work rate went, I thought he put in a jolly good performance up front for us.
Yeah, and I thought a lot didn't come off for him. I think he could have possibly been more intelligent especially in the very last stages. There were times when he ended up playing the ball out where he just didn't look like he was a guy that had ever really played hold-up play, the Samuel Eto'o Verinta role where your goal is just to try and keep the ball stuck to your feet so that the opposition don't get it back. But I don't think he was lazy in the slightest. I think it just possibly, that wasn't his game. In terms of observations on Nazon or Nazon or Nazon, as I think one of the commentators on iFollow called him, Paul, your observation has been running through my head since you said it. When he came out onto the pitch to start off with, quick as a flash, you said, that is an XL guy in a large shirt. And I can't get it out of my head because every time I see him now, he looks like he's going to Incredible Hulk his way out of that shirt at any moment.
He was punishing that material, wasn't he? Really?
The worrying thing about that statement is, and it's sort of confirmation bias, because when we came, as the players ran out on Saturday, last night, Jimbo turned to me and went, not only is Nazon really well built, but he likes having a shirt the size too small. It's like, yeah, we sort of hang around a bit too much, don't we? I've been waiting to see Nazon for a while, and seeing McNulty sort of labour, in my opinion, labour a bit up front, I found it a bit frustrating. And then I found yesterday quite frustrating with Nazon as well, because, and I know Joey's going to disagree with this, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Yesterday we played the 4-4-1-1 or 4-2-3-1 we play, and he played the duck behind Bevan. And in the first half, there were 3 times the ball went to Bevan in the penalty area, because he was the more nominally forward one, so that makes sense, goes to him. The first time, he just looked a bit scared and didn't know what to do with himself and gave the ball away quite cheaply. The second time, he looked a bit more committed, but still didn't really get a shot away. Third time, he got a shot away with his left foot that the keeper parried, and you were like, I would like one of those to have fallen to the duck, because when the ball fell to the duck around the area, he was normally a defender away from the goal. He was having to beat someone before he could get through. It was always a case of it wasn't an easy opportunity. In the second half, the first time, and from what I could see, the only time the entire second half he went off injured, that he was the striker who was on the last man, where the ball just went through him and he was level with the 2 centre halves, was the goal. And you were like, that's why I like Nazon. I haven't seen a lot of him, but I look at that guy. He's the only guy I'm convinced in that situation would score, because he's the only guy who's just direct. He's just. Yeah. I've never been a massive fan of, I don't care, as long as he scores goals. I still like my strikers to do a little bit of work rate. In League 2, where you've got, we play with so many defensive players, if we've got one player and all they do is come alive in the penalty area, I'll accept that. I'll accept that out of McNulty. I just haven't seen him play well yet. If that's going to be Nazon, I don't care if he doesn't run around that much, because most teams in this division aren't going to play the ball out from the back with superb play. They're going to be quite shit. So if he doesn't track back, not that bothered. If he doesn't has players, yeah, it'd be nice. But if I'm giving them the ball 20 yards away from goal, and I know that there's hell or high water, he's going to get through and score, I'm prepared to take that, the other things he might not add, because we need to get out of this division and we need to be scoring goals. And yesterday in the first half, and all game, Bevan doesn't look like a goal scorer. And I know other people think he had a really good game yesterday. I'll get on to why I didn't a bit later, but he's not a goal scorer. The Duck, I don't care if he's not interested the rest of the pitch. He looks like the sort of guy who just wants to score goals. And that's desperately what we need in that team.
Which bit of that am I going to disagree with?
Well, you don't think it matters that much whether or not the Duck plays in front of Bevan or Bevan plays in front of the Duck.
No. That's only because I don't think it makes much difference, because Bevan shouldn't be on the pitch at the minute. I absolutely think that... but it has to be that the Duck plays in front of him, and that's evidenced by the goal that he scored. For me, I want the ball played in front of him with him on the shoulder, and he's powerful enough and fast enough that his physicality does a lot of the work, and palpably is a better finisher than Bevan, because he's scored a goal ever. It's not even a question for me. I would 100% have that. I think Bevan, if he has a function, it's either up front on his own with like inside forwards next to him, or that he plays as like a foil for a striker who's going to score goals. There's no way he's the striker. That's insane.
He was first half he was poor. Second half he was involved more. But as I said, I'll get on to Bevan in a minute. First half, I think if we're being completely honest with ourselves, it was pretty boring, and Carlisle were the better team.
Can I just check? We've just fully transitioned, haven't we? We are now in. Let's bring the shutters down on Port Vale, and we've gone full Carlisle, haven't we?
I thought I'd just do it seamlessly.
Take it away. It was amazing.
And as we were discussing earlier, I don't know, as I said earlier to Neil, it's not a case of if you put Man City on the pitch against us, they're going to tear us apart. Obviously they are. But there were 4 opportunities in the first half where Carlisle got into our box and you were like, a Premier League team scores probably all 4 chances because they were decent opportunities. A Championship team probably scores 2, maybe 3. A League One side definitely scores and makes your goalkeeper work a couple of times. Carlisle got 1 shot away in those 4 opportunities, and that was a good save by Burge, but that was literally all that, they wasted 4 gilt-edged opportunities. It was incredible how open both teams were in the first half. Our defence was quite poor, and it was interesting that Tom Davis got man of the match, because it was like in the first half,
I don't get that.
He was really tentative. He was really just not. I'm going to say nervous, but I don't mean nervous. I mean he just unsure about himself, and it was like, really, you think he's the man of the match? Because for 45 minutes, he was a big liability yesterday. On the positive side about the defence, we don't use Jordan Willis to do anything anymore apart from use his athleticism. I don't think he had the ball at his feet once yesterday to pass it to a teammate. It was great. It was like, yay, we're ignoring Jordan Willis. So I mean, Carlisle, as the other thing we discussed, and I don't know if it's true, but it feels to me a little bit like the team who takes the lead first in League Two is probably going to win more often than in any of the other divisions I've ever seen. Because, as I said, first half, Carlisle were probably the better team. Second half, bit scrappy, ball falls to Liam Kelly, strides forward, plays ball through to the duck, he holds off 2 men, scores, and you're like, oh, okay, this is really interesting because Carlisle were the better team, but we've now scored. How's that? And then Carlisle just went. That was it.
Are you underplaying the goal a little bit there, Paul? I thought.
In what sense?
In the sense that it was actually a really nice goal.
Oh yeah. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to take anything. It was a really nice finish. It was a great pass from Liam Kelly, and I think if as I said, my reservation with Bevan is I don't think Bevan would have played that pass to the duck at the point where Kelly did. And there were times in the second half where Bevan got the ball and it was like play him. Shit. Oh, okay, you've now picked Grimmer out. But the ball was to Jody Jones about 5 minutes ago. And I found that with Bevan all yesterday, especially the second half, was he either took the wrong option or the option he took, the pass was poor. And it killed quite a lot of momentum. And I said that the one with Grimmer, if you were being Bevan, you'd be like, oh yeah, but he's picked Grimmer out. It's a good pass. But if you were looking at it from the moment he got the ball, it was like the pass to Jones is the best pass because Jones is now. If that ball goes through to Jones, Jones is through one-on-one with the keeper. That has to be your pass. That's the only option you've got. Oh, okay, you've now delayed so long that you've got another option. So you don't look. It doesn't look like a bad move because you've completed the pass and we're still attacking. But you know what I mean. It was the wrong pass. It killed that momentum. And for me, yesterday, Bevan, I found, was quite poor. And another thing a lot of people have said, it was like, yeah, but he dragged people away from Jody Jones. Jody Jones was playing on the wing. For some unknown reason, Carlisle didn't decide to play with a winger who was going to trap back to make it 2-on-1 against Jody Jones. Yeah. They left Jody Jones the entire 90 minutes 1-on-1 against the fullback. And that had nothing to do with... It had as much to do with, I don't know, fucking Jordan Willis as it did with Bevan. That was purely Carlisle's tactics. It was stupid.
He was loving it.
Absolutely loving it. And fair play to Sideways Sammy, because in his pre-match review, he said, Keith Curl can't organise a defence. And you watch that and you're like, he really can't, can he? Considering how good Keith Curl was as a defender, it's amazing how shocking his defence is. And then my other, obviously a lot of people, the Duck, like, he's got a bit of an attitude. Because in the first half, he sort of kicked the ball away and was like,
Twice, that was funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like quite grumpy. And then the second half, he went to do it again and we were like, ooh. And then he sort of just stopped. And it was like, okay, that doesn't look good. And then the Duck went off injured and we were like, oh, shit. We're now, how can we have how can we have 7 strikers and 4 of them be injured? B, how can we have 7 strikers, 4 of them injured, yet Stuart Bevan's still fit?
Given what happened last season when he was basically not fit at all.
No. So that's a bit harsh on Bevan. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, and he does work really, really hard. And it's a bit like the Callum Riley thing. I do accept there are certain attributes that maybe I don't appreciate as much as others. I just like my goal scorer to try and score once every so often. And I also know that Bevan doesn't score, and he still got Player of the Year at Burton when they won promotion. I accept all this. I just look at it and just think, if we had a better player than Bevan, yesterday we probably would have won about 4 or 5-0. Because the amount of opportunity he got to actually make a positive impact on that game with the ball at his feet against a really shit Carlisle defence was frustrating. The other person who did really well yesterday, after about the 80th minute, was Vincenzi, because he scored in the 80th minute. And up till then, first half he had been pretty poor. Second half he had been... I'm doing some moving my arm, which no one can see. He was basically all right-ish. He gave the ball away a lot, but he won the ball back. And then he gave it away, and he won it back. He was just... Nothing was working. Let's be positive. Nothing was working for Vincenzi. And then he shinned the ball into the back of the net from 3 yards. And then suddenly he was pulling back heels out.
That's all you need.
And his back heel went to the opposition. But he did a back heel, so everyone clapped him. You were like, but that was shit. It didn't work. But that's nothing away from Vincenzi. After he scored, his confidence improved. His level of performance did improve. He looked a bit more sure about himself. And let's hope that goal is going to give him the confidence. Because for whatever criticism I've had or anyone's had of the guy, he does get in the box. He is.
Yeah.
It might not be a winger that I would want in terms of taking a man on or playing a creative pass or doing anything of sort of. But if he gets into the box and scores us 10 goals this season, he's probably done his job. So I think, in terms of would I prefer someone else? Maybe. But what we said a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Carl Baker was what we want is someone who's going to get us around 10 goals. If Vincenzi does that, then I think we're all going to have to just accept he is what he is. He does what he does, but he scores goals because Carlisle are a team that finished in the playoffs last season, and for 45 minutes they probably were the better team. But once we went ahead, they weren't getting into it. I know they had the shot that that Birch pushed onto the bar, but other than that, they looked pretty poor. And then I think we just have to give more and more praise to Jody Jones, who in the second half, he looked at their fullback in the same way that I look at chocolate eclair. He just went, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. You know me, I
like a chocolate eclair, yeah.
I've had very few heroes, Cov heroes, especially League One. I can't really think of many in League One. Probably, Madison, Murphy I really liked, but there was sort of
Leon
a bit
Clark,
of a period.
Callum Wilson,
Even
Adam
Callum
Armstrong.
Wilson. Yeah, but Jody Jones is like I think it's the fact with Jody Jones is the fact that I just see someone who's just thoroughly enjoying playing football, and if teams are built in the sort of mould of their manager, I'd hate to be stuck in a lift with Mark Robbins because he mustn't be the most interesting guy. But there must be part of him which is similar to Jody Jones, and you'd be wanting to get that part of him out because that bit would be really interesting. And it's like Jody Jones is just the interesting part of our team, especially when the duck went off. It's like he's the man. You just want him to get the ball. You want him to do stuff. You want him to, because you know something's going to happen, even if it's shit. Like in the first half, he had a shot with his right foot that was shit. But you're trying that now. You've got the confidence that if it goes three miles wide at about 2 miles an hour, you'll know that you're going to get the ball in a minute, you're going to beat your man, and you're going to have a chance to do something else. And that's what I like about him. He bounces back. It's like every time he does something shit, he then tries something again. And that's what you want out of a winger. It's not going to work every time, but you want to be entertained, and Jones is entertainment.
Maybe it's my social anxiety speaking, but Mark Robbins is exactly the kind of guy I want to be stuck in a lift with. I don't want anybody talking to me. Just be quiet in the lift.
Ideally, yeah, you'd be stuck in a lift for 12 hours and not know the person's name would be the optimum for me. I want to quickly give my two pennathon Vincenti, and then ask about a player who, admittedly, only in the highlights looked like he had an improved performance yesterday. Vincenti, I think against Port Vale, I don't think he played particularly well, but I think I'm starting to get it a bit more. And the context that I would give it is the example of Mark Robbins's, I think, I'll probably be corrected on this, Scunthorpe team that beat us 2-1 when Jacob Murphy, it was when Mowbray was doing well. It was a rare game that we lost in that period, and Jacob Murphy scored a screamer in the second half. But we lost that game in no small part down to the fact that every time we got the ball back to the keeper, they rolled it out to Raider Johnson at left back, and they just closed him down and they won it back so often. And it really bugs me seeing teams try and play out from the back when they just can't do it. Yeah. And on Saturday, what was really obvious was the fact that we're kicking it into midfield, and specifically at Vincenti. And I actually don't think he does a bad job of I think the ball comes off him in such a way that we tend to get it. And even if we don't, at least it's further enough. It's further enough up the pitch, and I think I think there is a weird kind of imbalanced balance to having Jones on one side and him on the other, and they do frequently switch them round to see whether they can get any more joy out of the other side. I'm not sure he's the best player in the world, but sometimes you need something tactically to come off, and I do think he provides that at the very least. A little bit like, and I think this is going to sound like a very lazy example, a little bit like what Mourinho was talking about last night with Fellaini's importance to the team. I just think he's the only bit that we've got that adds that dimension, and I think his goal last night was kind of him at his best in a nutshell. I think it's a really awkward-looking shinned goal to go in, but I wonder if anybody else scores it. That extra height and that extra kind of gangliness and everything, kind of his leg gets up really high and allows him to kind of force it in. And it's a weird kind of thing where, almost like I was talking about with a lower league team signing a 100-metre sprinter just because it gives them that extra dimension. You wonder whether we'd be worse off with a better player who was smaller and not as kind of physical and whatever. But that's
we were saying the same point against County, weren't we? The first game is kind of, it doesn't look balanced, but there's a potential. If you play it right, it does. I think to Paul's point, now, what if he can take that confidence and kind of remove some of the real daftness from his game? So those moments where he just makes really sloppy mistakes.
Yeah.
Remove those, stop people from kind of focusing on him so much. Then you can kind of just start to kind of appreciate him a little bit more as for what he does and the good things that he does. Because the problem is when you play in the way that he does and then you make really glaringly obvious mistakes and the team's not playing particularly well, it becomes too obvious and everybody becomes focused on him and it's never going to make him play better. So, as I always say, my focus is on now his confidence, and if he can sort of harness what he's done in this previous game, that last 10 minutes was, peak Vincenti. Let's see what he can do in the next game.
But there is still the glaring sort of fact that you take Jody Jones out of that team and we're quite plodding and quite dull.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, of course, yeah.
And it's like, it only works if Jones is playing well.
But that's a team, though, isn't it? Because
that is
equally, you probably don't win the ball in midfield if there's not a Vincenti there. It's the relative merits, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know that he's nowhere near as important as Jones is, but it seems a bit churlish to have a go at him for not being Jody Jones.
No, I'm not. This isn't really about Vincenzi at all. Really, it's just the rest of the side. It only works at the moment. I think you can take anyone else out of that team and put someone else in. Like as we're talking about,
we're seeing it now, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, McDonald was great on. I think there's always a difference between what you see on paper and what you see in real life, because I think you can be as clinical as you want about, he lost 60% of his headers. But what he might have not have done is he might have gone for those headers. He might have missed them, but the guy who's won it hasn't been able to sort of find a teammate because he's been under the pressure of McDonald. I think I'm not taking anything away from Charlie Harris's blog. I think it's brilliant, but I think there is always, with all stats and all those sort of things, there is always another sort of part of it. But I think you take anyone out of that team, and the team would probably still function in a way, and probably not a bad way. I don't think we're I think we're quite a dull team. I don't think we're a bad team, but I think you can take anyone out of that team, and we've mostly done it apart from midfield, and you can replace them, and I think we'll be fine. You take Jody Jones out, and we're fucked.
Yeah,
and that's my issue with why I want the Duck in there. Is I think you put the Duck in. If the Duck gets a run, I think you could probably take Jones out, and would still work. But I think you have to. That's why, for me, you have as many. You don't have like 11 of them, obviously, or 10 of them, or you have 3 or 4 of them in your side, or at least 3 in your side, who you're like, okay, I can. You 3 are the reason. A bit like when we had Mowbray. It was like we had, there were the 3 attacking players were the 3 that could win us games. And at the moment, I'm still worried that we were so reliant on Jones. And when I was so worried when the Duck went injured off yesterday, because it was like, oh shit, you've come in, you've scored, and you look like the sort of player I hope. It was only a cameo, really. It was only 60 minutes, so he could still turn out to be shit. But at least. And the other thing which was great was, if you've seen the highlight, I'm not sure, it's probably not on the highlights. Have you seen, I can never pronounce his name, Biamu's chance?
You got it spot on, Paul. That's good.
It was really nice, yeah. It's only taken you 5 episodes this season. I haven't.
All right.
No, I haven't. Go on.
I think Jody Jones goes down the right wing. He puts in a right-footed cross, and it takes a deflection. It sort of hangs in the air. And about 5 minutes before he takes the shot, Biamu sort of sets himself for like the volley. The volley that every single player in the world wants to score at something. The ball's dropping out the air. He's got loads of time. He's sort of arching his back. He's like, and he balloons it about 3 miles over the map. And you're like, if you'd have scored that really could have set you off. Because it wasn't a difficult chance in terms of. The ball was coming nicely, that he was in a lot of time, I said it was a bit like slow-mo, and you could sort of see his eyes lighting up, like, I can't believe I'm getting this chance. And you're like, if you'd have just nailed that probably would have set you away.
You know what?
And that's not to say it won't be, but it was like, oof.
Bevans in the Czech trade, that sort of volley where he actually connected for the biggie goal.
Yeah.
You connect like that, it goes in, and it. Yeah, I was I don't really know what he's about yet, so I was expecting some extravagant sort of overhead kick. He bottled that, and then, like you say, he just sort of ballooned it over. And I do quite like him. I've no idea why. I think we've got an option there.
He's a physical presence of sorts, isn't he? The more I see him, the more I think, you actually are quite a big chap. I want to ask one final question about somebody yesterday, just in a little bit more detail. I think you touched on briefly. From the highlights, at least, Neil, it looked like Grimbles played a lot better than he has done so far this season.
I wanted to make that point actually, because I think he's really starting to settle down now, especially. And one thing that he has got, which I think he just reins it in a little bit at the moment. He's got some pace about him, and he's certainly got a good stride as well. And I think we'll see more and more of this as the season goes on, because I kind of alluded to it in the first few games where I was watching him, and he was holding it back. He was a bit tentative. He looked nervous, actually. But no, I think last night he had a good fullbacks game, and he's starting to move forward with the ball. And like you say, we need more of an option than Jody Jones as a sort of an attacking threat. And if you ultimately have the team that we want on the pitch with our best players on the pitch, and you have him playing in a certain way, maybe Ryan Haynes playing a certain way on the left-hand side, suddenly I feel like you can have that quite attacking unit, because he's not shown it yet, but I definitely think there's an attacking player in there, or someone who's able to get forward and do a bit of damage.
I'd hate to be my usual negative self.
Go for it, Paul, go for it.
I do think he was helped by the fact that Carlisle just didn't seem to have anyone on the left wing for him to agree up against.
I'm not even focusing on that though. It's more that
defensive. He had he had no reason not to be really gung ho yesterday. Second half, he was basically unleashed, and that's nothing against him. He had a better performance, but it's always a lot easier when you're a fullback when you know he can give the ball away. He's not going to be punished because there was no one sort of in his area really. So he had that license, and to be fair to him, he did get forward, but it was a lot. It was surprising how easy he had it yesterday in that position.
But my memories aren't of him just running into open space. And the ones that I've got in my mind are the ones where he's he's in still quite tight areas, and he was doing nice little touches. He was knocking the ball around players, and like you say, I think there is a point around. It was probably easier because he knew there wasn't the same level of threat against him as there would be normally. But I still think, sort of, for his own sort of confidence, that sort of performance showcased that he actually started to move into more of a positive mindset.
Okay, I think that's everything, isn't it? We've got no Dominic this week, who is sunning himself in Seville, I believe. So do your own preview. I'm not even sure who we've got. Cambridge away, haven't we?
Yes.
They're, I think they play in yellow. So that's enough for that. Okay.
Dion Dublin used to play for them.
Yeah.
They're managed by John Beck.
John Beck, that's it. That's who I was trying to think of there. They have got a university there. A lovely little university.
Not as famous as Hull.
Yeah, well, quite. I think that's the extent of our Cambridge preview. Neil, anything going on the Sky Blues blog?
Just the usual this week, I'd say. Just to get a preview and stuff. Get over there.
And I'm going to try and find... It's very difficult. We've referenced it a couple of times so far. CCFC...
That just sounds like we can't say CCFC, doesn't it?
I know, yeah.
After all these years. People need to... it's phonetically, isn't it? So,
it's phonetically. Yes, I think it's S-E-A-S-E-E-E-F...
No, E-F-F.
E-F-F, C-E-E.
Charlie, you might have to work on your marketing here, mate.
Yeah,
we're struggling.
But it's...
But we haven't promoted this much of anything ever. So, do us a favour.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, Dominic's blog, which is sidewayssammy.wordpress.com. There's an awful lot for you to read at the minute that's all very worthwhile. You're all a lucky bunch of beggars out there. Okay, we're going to be back next week to talk about Cambridge, hopefully in more detail than we were able to do in the preview. Thank you, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
And thank you, listener. Bye.